You meet someone at a party. Within 10 minutes, you like them. You can't say exactly why. Something about the eye contact. Something about the way they laugh at your jokes a beat before anyone else does. Your gut tells you this person is safe. You trust that feeling because you've trusted it your whole life. But the real answer is far stranger. Your gut wasn't built to detect what walked into that room. It was built for a world of small tribes, where everyone's reputation was known before they spoke a word. It was never built for a man like Ted Bundy. Bundy confessed to 30 murders. Some investigators believe the real number was much higher. He was a law student. He worked on a suicide hotline. He answered calls from strangers in crisis with warmth and patience, sometimes hours before he drove off to find a victim of his own. Women described him as polite, charismatic, handsome in a way that felt safe. One survivor later said he looked like someone's boyfriend, not someone's nightmare. During his trial in Florida, he chose to represent himself. He cross-examined witnesses in a calm, articulate voice, while cameras broadcast the proceedings nationwide. He proposed marriage to a woman on the witness stand, mid-testimony, and the judge allowed the ceremony to stand as legal under Florida law. He had already escaped police custody twice before that trial even began, once by leaping from a courthouse window, once by cutting a hole in a jail ceiling and losing enough weight to slip through it. Every part of that story should read as a villain, somehow. To millions of people watching at the time, it read as spectacle, even charisma. How does a mind capable of that kind of violence also produce that kind of charm? The answer isn't that Bundy hid a monster behind a mask. The answer is stranger. The mask was the monster. There was nothing underneath it to hide. In 1941, a psychiatrist named Hervey Cleckley published a book that tried to explain this exact contradiction. He called it The Mask of Sanity. Cleckley had spent years interviewing patients who seemed, on the surface, completely normal, charming even. They held jobs. They made friends easily. But underneath the surface, something was missing. No lasting guilt. No real fear. Just a flawless imitation of feelings other people actually had. Cleckley didn't think these people were consciously pretending to be human. He thought they had learned to perform humanity so well that even they sometimes forgot the performance wasn't real. Decades later, a psychologist named Robert Hare turned Cleckley's observations into something measurable. He built a diagnostic tool called the Psychopathy checklist, still used today in prisons and courtrooms around the world. Hare didn't just study behavior, he studied language. In one striking study, he had psychopathic and non-psychopathic inmates respond to words flashed briefly on a screen, some emotional, some neutral. Most people react faster to emotional words than neutral ones. Fear, love, death. Your brain treats those words differently than it treats chair or window. But the psychopaths in Hare's study didn't show that gap. Emotional words and neutral words moved through their minds at almost exactly the same speed. Fear didn't spike. Love didn't catch. To their brains, those words carried no more weight than furniture. Now hold that thought, because it explains something that should feel impossible. A person with no real fear should be a wreck in social situations. Fear is supposed to be useful. It stops you from saying the wrong thing, from lingering too long in a stranger's gaze, from pushing when you should pull back. But what if the opposite is true? What if fear is actually what makes most people awkward? Neuroscientist Kent Kiehl spent years scanning the brains of incarcerated psychopaths. Using a mobile MRI unit, he drove directly into prison parking lots, since the subjects couldn't simply be released to visit his lab. What he found, again and again, was reduced activity in the Paralympic system, the network of brain regions responsible for processing fear, guilt, and emotional urgency. Less fear circuitry firing means less hesitation. Less hesitation means smoother eye contact, steadier hands, a voice that never catches. The very thing that should make someone seem inhuman is often the thing that makes them seem effortlessly at ease. Bundy's calm wasn't a mask stretched over panic. There was no panic underneath to hide. Here's where it gets even stranger. Charm isn't only about staying calm. It's also about knowing exactly who to approach. In 2013, psychologist Angela Book at Brock University ran an experiment that still unsettles people who hear about it. She had incarcerated men, some scoring high on psychopathy measures, watched short silent video clips of strangers simply walking down a street. Nothing dramatic happened in the footage. No context, no faces even, just gait. The high-scoring men were remarkably accurate at picking out which strangers had, in real life, previously been the victims of assault. Something in the way a person moves, carries their shoulders, holds their pace, broadcasts a signal. Most people never learn to read that signal consciously. Predators do, and they read it fast. So picture Bundy at a beach, on a college campus, in a parking lot with his arm in a fake cast, asking for help. He wasn't randomly persuasive to everyone he met. He was reading a room the way a hawk reads a field, and he was speaking directly to whoever's posture, whoever's hesitation, told him would be easiest to isolate. That's not intuition in the way people normally use the word. It's closer to a specialized kind of pattern recognition, built on an absence most people are lucky enough to never develop. There was also mimicry involved, the kind studied by social psychologists long before Bundy's name meant anything. People like people who feel familiar, mirror someone's posture, match the rhythm of their speech, echo back the last few words of their own sentence, and something in their brain quietly files the encounter under safe, under one of us. Most people do this a little, without noticing, because it smooths ordinary conversation. Bundy appears to have done it deliberately and constantly, a practice tool rather than an accident of rapport. Combine that with a nervous system that never spikes, a face that never leaks the wrong signal at the wrong moment, and the result isn't just persuasive, it's engineered. Even if the man doing the engineering couldn't fully explain why it worked either. This is the counterintuitive twist buried inside decades of research. Charm and cruelty are assumed to be opposites. A truly warm person, most people believe, could never also be dangerous, and danger should announce itself somehow, through a look, a tone, a wrongness that could be sensed. But charm, at least the specific frictionless kind Bundy displayed, isn't the opposite of cruelty. In some minds, it's a side effect of the exact same deficit. Remove the fear response that makes most people flinch, hesitate, overthink, and what's left often looks like confidence. Remove the emotional weight that makes most conversations feel loaded, and what's left often looks like ease. The gut isn't bad at detecting danger because it's broken. It's bad at it because the danger, in cases like this, doesn't look like danger. It looks like safety. There's a reason this should matter beyond a piece of trivia about a man executed in 1989. The same charm circuitry Bundy exploited hasn't gone anywhere. It doesn't require a serial killer to be dangerous. Robert Hare didn't stop his research at prison walls. Working with industrial psychologist Paul Babiak, he studied psychopathic traits inside ordinary corporations, interviewing executives who had never broken a law in their lives. Their book on the subject carried a simple, unsettling title, Snakes in Suits. They found psychopathic traits appearing at meaningfully higher rates among certain leadership roles than in the general population, not because psychopathy makes someone competent, but because fearlessness, low anxiety, and a frictionless social manner are frequently mistaken for confidence during a 30-minute interview. Nobody scans a candidate's amygdala before a hire. Nobody times how quickly their brain reacts to the word grief. The same traits that let Bundy pass as trustworthy to strangers on a beach let some people pass as trustworthy in boardrooms, in relationships, on a first date arranged through an app that shows nothing but a photo and a few lines of text. Confidence on its own was never actually evidence of safety. It never should have been treated that way. So what does anyone do with that? A brain scan isn't available at a party. A lexical decision task can't be run on a first date, but the research points to something more useful than paranoia. It points to time. Cleckley noted that the mask, however convincing, rarely survives sustained observation across different contexts. Consistency is the tell. Does the warmth appear only when it's useful? Or does it hold up when nothing can be gained? Does the charm survive being told no? Bundy's closest acquaintances, the ones who spent years around him, later described flickers, small ones, moments where the performance seemed to drop half a beat before resuming. A girlfriend of several years recalled finding his emotional reactions occasionally just slightly wrong for the moment, a beat too flat, a laugh landing half a second late. None of them could quite name what they'd seen at the time. Most of them still liked him anyway. Some for years afterward, even after his arrest. That's the part worth sitting with. Even knowing what to look for, even loving someone and watching closely, the mask often still works. It was never designed to fool strangers alone. It was built to fool the people closest to it too, which brings this back to that party. 10 minutes into a conversation, already certain this stranger is likable, the gut isn't lying about how it feels. It's just answering a question evolution never prepared it to ask. For most of human history, a stranger's calm really did mean something. because strangers were rare, and a face without fear in it usually belonged to someone with nothing to hide. That world had small tribes, long memories, and no room for a man to drive across state lines and become someone new. It's reading ease, warmth, fearlessness, and reporting back that all of it must mean safety, because for most of human history, it did. Tonight, when you meet someone whose calm feels just a little too complete, whose charm arrives a little too fast and fits a little too well, remember that the feeling in your gut isn't proof of anything. It's a guess, built for a world that no longer exists, aimed at a kind of stranger it was never designed to see.